The Browns are just the Browns, right?
What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show. It's great to be here with all of you today. We have a very exciting show in store for you. As always, we're alongside by Gavin Tony, 10:53 a.m. here on the East Coast. It is the 11th of January, 2021. For those who might be wondering whether or not Gavin's going crazy, he's just singing the Corvette song as a little nod to what happened last night in that game, which we'll open up with. But of course, wild card weekend, I should say, including a game on Nickelodeon, Sean Payton getting some real slime after the game. I got to say, this has been one of the most fun sports weekends I can recall in a little while. It's just great. We have 3 NFL games on back-to-back days. NBA was a little quiet during the weekend, but yes, we do have some issues we need to discuss today because 7 Sixers players played on Saturday when the Celtics game was canceled yesterday. But we'll get to all of that. First of all, Gavin, you look pretty happy today. How are you doing on this fine Monday?
Corvette. Okay, I'm doing good, Zach. How you doing?
Listen, all right, ready? Gavin's gonna be getting the TikTok. Stay tuned. That's next chapter.
I'm gonna make one. More influence with TikTok. We're just making Corvette. That's all we're doing. But no, Zach. I'm doing great. And for once, I agree with you. I'm not happy with Adam Silver as well. We'll get into that. But Zach, it was a fantastic weekend for your boy. Every game I was perfect on predictions. Sean Payton got slimed in the 11s. I don't know how I feel about that, Zach. That's one of my favorite shoes. And that Corvette's in Cabo now. But Zach, how you doing?
You know, I was reading the comments on the ESPN post of him getting slimed. What are you talking about? I go back to the video and I see on his feed. I'm like, oh, you can't do that. You can't. I'm not the most. You know, I've had a few different nice shoes. I know Gavin, you know a little more than I do, but I did have LeBron 12s back in the day. They're somewhere in my house. They do not fit me anymore, but I still understand a little bit of the shoes. So.
What size are they?
I don't remember what size they are. You can have them if you want. They were right after the LeBron 11s, which were the ones with like the strap over the waist. It was the next design after that with like the spider design. I did use it the few years that I played basketball. I did find a picture today from playing basketball back in the day when I was actually, believe it or not, the tallest kid on the team. I became the shortest really quickly again, going from a center to a point guard.
The tallest kid on the team was guarded by the shortest kid on the team.
It's because you're a good post defense. But in all seriousness, Gavin, let's get into it today. I mean, I don't even know what I watched last night. I know we got a Browns fan that we've had on before. We got to bring him on. I'm sure he's ecstatic. I will tell you this, though. If the Browns beat the Chiefs, I am buying a Baker Mayfield shirt. And it's not because he did anything special, but you got to love the swagger, especially when they're winning. The Browns came into this game with a lot of adversity. We spoke about last week. I vouched for the game to be postponed. You don't have your head coach who is not even allowed to do play calling because he has COVID. He's in his basement, unfortunately. Your special teams coordinator is calling play call. A lot of your team is banged up, especially your defense, or has COVID, including your best corner. But that didn't matter yesterday, Gavin, because the first snap of the game, the Steelers shot themselves in the foot. 28 points in the first quarter. And then they were up 35-7. I actually tweeted 35-7 is about to become the new 28-3. Simply put, because it looked like the Steelers were coming back, but the Browns wouldn't let up. Third down, they're throwing the ball over the middle. They're putting the ball in Baker Mayfield's hands. I give a lot of credit to these guys last night. I give a lot of credit to the coaching staff to call those plays and not go too conservative. And I give credit to Baker Mayfield for making some big-time throws. Was he doing anything special last night? Not really. Hit Jarvis Landry over the middle. He got yards after the catch for a touchdown. Same thing with Nick Chubb. Baker Mayfield is not the reason they won last night, but he did what – I mean, it's not an insult. Game manager, it's not an insult because if you're winning, you're winning. Baker Mayfield is able to put the team on his back. He has done it this year, but all he needed to do last night was step up and make a few big throws. He did. They hung over 40 points on this Steelers team that has just completely shot themselves in the foot. Ben Roethlisberger, 4 interceptions, 5 total turnovers. I'm not sure the first one was his fault because Pouncey snapped it over his head. But this Browns team was legit, Gavin. A lot of other teams would have lost last night the way the Steelers were rolling late, but they held on. They kept their foot on the pedal. Cody Parkey, 2 for 2 on field goals, perfect from the PATs on touchdowns. It was a great game for Cleveland. I'm sure that Cleveland fans are really happy. I got to be honest. It was just a really good game for them. For those, I've been pretty high on the Steelers all year. I've been defending them. Gavin, I know you have been the all but contrary after the 11-0 start. But I did not expect the Steelers to be a one and done. You should have beat Cleveland last week and took them out while you could because they know you too well now. But Ben Roethlisberger never lost to the Browns in Heinz Field, and that was ugly last night for them. So if you're a Cleveland fan today, we all know the great stories that they've had and the upset with the Indians who have made the playoffs and have made the World Series a few times. We have the Cleveland Cavaliers, of course, 4 straight finals, including a 3-1 comeback, and they were able to claim a victory. No, Gavin, I will not mention LeBron James. We're just talking about what's going on in Northeast Ohio right now. And then, of course, you have the Cleveland Browns, who have been the humiliation of the league. Gavin, even after getting Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Baker Mayfield, Denzel Ward, Myles Garrett, I said Odell Beckham, but you have Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb, David Njoku. They still were a laughingstock last year. They went 6-10. They fire Freddie Kitchens. They bring in Kevin Stefanski, reinvents the offense. They got to stick to their game plan. The best thing could have happened. Going up 28-0, you stick to the script that Kevin Stefanski created, but I'm sure there were a few off-script plays. Props to that special teams coordinator. He might get a look for offensive coordinator in this offseason all of a sudden. All of a sudden, from what I saw last night, are you kidding me? They did great. I'm sure a lot of it was still Kevin Stefanski. I kind of hope we can listen in on him on how his preparations went for that game. But that team was banged up and down. The NFL didn't do anything to help them. They stepped up. They responded. They did their job. Props to the Browns. On the other side of the ball, not many words. Underachievers. Talent was there. Underachievers. Big Ben. The offensive coordinator or whoever's calling plays, the dip and dunk system doesn't work. I can't stand it. When you let Ben throw downfield to Claypool and Johnson, and I know some of those guys struggled with catching the ball this year, but even Juju Smith-Schuster, who had a hell of a game last night. So I know I'm making jokes today, but over 150 yards total on a touchdown for Juju Smith-Schuster in his potentially last game as a Steeler, first 100-yard playoff game in his career.
First 100-yard game of the season. I guess that Corvette really did take him a couple.
There's not much to say. I'm not sure what more. They shot themselves in the foot. It was very un-Steelers-like. Cleveland Browns topple over Pittsburgh, securing the win, going against a very tough challenge in Kansas City next week, arguably the Kareem Hunt revenge game. I'm not going to make predictions now. I'm going to need to sit on this. It seems obvious that Kansas City should win, but they've been playing way too close the past few weeks. We'll get to that. But Gavin, what are some of your reactions from the game?
Well, my first reaction was Big Ben, more like Big Bum. Zach, his interception, Zach, I get it, all right? He's old, he's this, he's that. But Zach, 4 interceptions or 4 touchdowns, yeah, they balance out. But did you watch how the interceptions were? They were high passes. One was tipped, so I don't know if I'm going to really, blame him for that.
One was tipped. One really should have hit the ground, but it was caught. And then one of them did. He threw it right to the defender.
Exactly.
The last one was right to the defender.
But one was really high. Yes, you would like to see a receiver catch a jump, but you also have to accommodate the receiver. So, yeah, 501 yards. He threw 68 times. Oh, my gosh. Like 2 more, and it would have been 70. There's nothing I like from Big Ben last night. If anyone's trying to sit here and say that Big Ben wasn't the problem, he kind of was a problem. He's not the overall problem, but he was a problem. Zach, remember what I said to you, I want to say maybe 4 weeks ago or December 1st? I said, the real Steelers are about to come out. The real Big Ben's about to show his head. He was doing it, but they kept winning games because they're scheduled. But what happened when they played the Washington football team? The real Big Ben showed. What happened when they played the depleted Ravens? They still walked out with the win, but the real Big Ben was showing. Then all it took was a great defense in Washington to show what really was going on. Then you go to Buffalo. You get your behind kick there. You should have lost to the Colts, but we know how pass interference can really bail somebody out. And then, Zach, you go versus the Browns. And then, yeah, I get it. Zach, he wasn't playing, so I get that. I'm not going to throw that. But then you don't play, and then you come back, and you still do the same thing. You just can't make this up. And then, Zach, let's talk about Mr. Corvette man himself. Oh, yeah, Zach, he hopped in the Corvette, right? He hopped right in the Corvette right out of Pittsburgh because I know people are pissed at him today. Zach, yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not going to talk about him as a person. Zach, we've seen him off the field. We've seen all the great things he does. But there's just some things you just don't do on the football field. Stephen A. Smith said it best. You can't talk trash in a sport of football because you're relying on 52 other people to back you up. He said the Browns are just the Browns. Zach, what, they have great faces? What does that even mean? They can say something about you. You're just another wide receiver. You're not even wide receiver 1. You don't have 100 yards. Your first 100-yard game came in the playoffs, and your TikToks almost succeeded your 100-yard game. It really did. All right?
Up till last night, they
did. Then it stopped. Then you got James Conner. I'm a fan of James Conner, Zach. All right.
I do have to say he looked good last night for the early part of the game.
Early part, 11 attempts, 30-something. I guess when you're down, you have to get away from the run game. But Zach, This run game looked horrible all year
It
long.
was non-existent all year.
All year long. Teams started making Big Ben throws. There wasn't what happened to the Steelers. They hopped in the Corvette and never showed to the stadium. That's what happened. But all in all, Zach, when it comes to this game last night, I was correct all along. I said, Zach, this team is overrated. They're just getting lucky with bad teams. The schedule lined up perfectly. But when the schedule got tough, what happens? Like they weren't winning. They was not winning. Washington was they just caught a really bad dose of the Washington football team, and then Josh Allen was a man on a mission. By the way, still a man on a mission. I think the MVP trophy might be his, or could be his. But Zach, the Steelers were overrated. The real Pittsburgh Steelers showed their head last night, and that's what it was.
Look, my argument all year has been about that defense. You've been very critical of the offense early in the year, and I said to you, they're not winning games because they're putting up – hopped in the Corvette and ran out of gas. But no, back to what I was saying. My argument's been about that defense. That defense is elite, and it's good. But the secondary is very depleted. It's pretty much just Minka back there. Hayden's been down. We know that Bush got hurt earlier in the year. I forget the other guy's name who got hurt a few weeks ago. It's a different story for some of these games if they don't suffer those injuries. With that being said, the dip and dunk system, the throwing it 55-plus times a game is going to wear down on Big Ben. Big Ben is the reason they lost if you look at the stats. But if you break it down to cause and effect, why did he have to throw so much? Because they got in the habit of that during the season. You get in habits in football. You can't really run the ball. I mean, the O-line's good, but, unfortunately, the running backs just haven't been there, especially against some of these tough teams. The run game's non-existent. The dip and dunk is very addictive. You can just learn that in Madden, throwing crossers on the field for 4 or 5 yards, hoping they get a yard after the catch. But you got to unload it downfield. That's the type of player Big Ben is. They didn't use him correctly this year. It's a dang shame because he was making a good case for a comeback player up until the last few weeks of the season. It's a shame for him. It's a shame for that team. I wish him nothing but the best. I do know a lot of Steelers fans, good friends of mine. We're not really rivals, despite the fact we're in the same state. We do like to see other Keystone teams succeed, unless you're the Penguins, I know, for our Flyers fans out there. But, look, at the end of the day, it was just a tough one for them. They were not prepared at all. A lot of respect to Mike Tomlin, but they have a lot of evaluating to do in the offseason.
See, I love Mike Tomlin, Zach. All right, obviously. One of the longest tenured African-American coaches in the league. Zach, he held this position for a long time.
Youngest and first, I think, to win a Super Bowl.
And that too. So I don't like rooting against Mike Tomlin. But Zach, it made it really hard this year to root for Mike Tomlin because I know just one, and it's not all the Steelers fans, ladies and gentlemen. I know a couple, my own cousin, she's a Steelers fan. All right. I texted her and asked her she was okay. It's like the response wasn't all right. I don't think she was happy with me because of that. But I also too, I know, and then there were some Steelers fans, and I know someone in particular that just love talking about the Eagles. And Zach, I can't hear. I don't know where he is today. They're just as bad as Cowboys fans today. They're not picking up their phone. Zach, you know what my motto is? Keep the same energy. You're gonna talk about another team. When your team loses, make sure you pick up the phone. None of us pick up the phone. The only one that did pick up the phone is my cousin. Congratulations. All right, she's the only one that's a real Steelers fan. She admitted when they were wrong. That's cool. But here's the thing, Zach. Other Steelers fans haven't picked up the phone. They're just Cowboys fans as well. It's a great day for me, Zach. I really have nothing to say. I gotta hit our Owen Browns fan up and ask him how he's feeling. He's probably feeling ecstatic today. And the guy that's been really critical of Baker Mayfield, Zach, he looked good. He made it, Zach. We always say
3 touchdown passes over 250 yards.
And it may seem like he didn't do much because the run game kind of took the pressure off him. But he was there when they needed him to be there. He was there when he made the throws that was needed to be made. Zach, we said game manager at best. That he just looked like Dak Prescott last night, making the throws when needed to be.
You know, I wouldn't say game manager at best. I would say a glorified game manager, which means you can work with him. That system can work. Kevin Stefanski, great job. Again, we have a lot of bombshell news coming up at the Eagles in a little bit, and we'll get to that. But you take a look at Baker Mayfield, a struggling quarterback in his third or so year. You figure by this point you should be good, first overall pick, all this other stuff. You win the Heisman, Oklahoma, all this other cool stuff. Beat Ohio State even when they were on their hot run a few years ago. You, of course, disrespected them and got a taste of the urine medicine last year on Monday Night Football at home. But with all that being said, even a guy like that who talks a lot, and again with Carson Wentz, he really doesn't chirp that much, although stuff leaks out. But as I digress, back to Baker Mayfield. You get himself a new coach. You work on that O-line. Credit to Andrew Berry. He was the Eagles executive vice president a little while back. He went over there this year to be their GM. They've done a great job in Cleveland. What a mess of an organization. 1-15, 0-16. 7-8-1, down to 6-10 last year. 11-5, winning their wild card game. A lot of credit to that organization. Just like with Miami, you want to know how to build a team. I mean, there's a lot of egos in Cleveland, and they do clash sometimes. Don't get me wrong. Last year, Freddie Kitchens wasn't able to handle the heat, but unlike Miami, though, but they're both them. They both have turned their teams around rather quickly, and the turnaround started with Baker Mayfield. So anyone who was a hater of Baker or has criticism for him today, it can't really exist today. The energy this year for Baker has been great. He said in the beginning of the year, I have to eat my own words. I talked a lot. Gavin, we were talking about how he has more commercials than career wins. I know Stephen A's been one that pointed to that. But at the end of the day, he's doing his part and then some. And you got to give him some credit. Today is a tough day for the Cleveland Brown Baker Mayfield haters. So that's all I got to say. They're going to be against a really tough opponent next week. We'll see what happens.
I got two final things, Zach. One, Baker Mayfield, because Zach, that I was a Baker Mayfield, I don't want to say hater, but I was a strong questioner of Baker Mayfield. I'm sorry, Baker. I'm really happy that you won last night. You don't understand. And Zach, sing it with me. Ready? Corvette. No, I'm done.
Bro. The amount of things that I've seen about that is hysterical. You see like the kid crying, doing it, the girl. Like I feel bad for. I mean, I'm not gonna say I feel bad for Juju. You're making a lot of money to play a kid's game. I mean, that's how I feel about all most.
He's not even number one.
Athletes. And he's not a bad person. He does so much for the community, and we have to make sure that we emphasize that when we talk about this. But when it causes issues for your team, it has to be pointed out. Just because you do great things off the field, it doesn't make you immune to some of the other hate out there. Some people are bad people like to hate, but sometimes you got to point out some legitimate things, especially when other teams are targeting you. And he had some hard tackles last night, some lowered helmets. I'm surprised no flags were thrown, but I did notice some things.
Jesus Smith-Schuster is one of the most lovable guys you can love off the field, Zach. Him around the community and all this stuff. But guess what, Juju? You're not making friends on the field. Everybody doesn't like you, Zach. You wasn't winning football games. You're just making a bigger target. You come out and the week after the Browns beat you, and then you come out and say the Browns are the Browns, and then they come into Pittsburgh. They haven't won in feels like forever. They come in, Zach, and then they whoop you on your own home field.
With fans.
With family and friends there to make it even worse. Zach, let's put it all in there. With family and friends, and there's no Steelers fan today that can say they're not happy with Juju Smith. They're happy with Juju Smith today because there's no way. But around the NFL we go.
Indeed, we do. The first game on our list, one that was close early, but the dominant team did prevail. Of course, there were some questionable play calls. There was a missed field goal. But Buffalo did look like the dominant team in this game, and they were able to sneak by. Buffalo Bills defeating the Indianapolis Colts 27-24. Josh Allen, he continues to look amazing. Let's start with the Colts side. Of course, we don't know what the QB situation is next year. They have a rookie there. They have Jacoby Brissett there. Of course, Phillip Rivers, one-year deal. Very emotional at the end of the game for him. He's had a great career for those who I know it really went unnoticed. Caught a lot of tough breaks with San Diego. And props to him on a good career. Of course, we all know how his career started with getting drafted by New York and being traded on draft night because Eli didn't want to be in the AFC. But it's whatever. I'm not going to dive into that too much. A history lesson. We were barely born yet, Gavin. But Phillip Rivers, heck of a career if he doesn't return. It's been really fun to watch him over the years. It's a shame that he did, as age will take you down, unless you're Tom Brady, start to digress in your game. But it was a fun year to watch him.
Well, Zach, when you talk about this game, they had the most offensive yards in this whole game, and they only put up 24 points. So you have to ask yourself, well, if I have all these yards, where are the points to match it? Zach, they only lost by a couple points. They only lost by 3 points to the Buffalo Bills. That was a great game. Zach, I was out. I did not have the chance to watch it. But I was listening to it in the car for the most part, and this team is going to be good. I just don't think Phillip Rivers was the answer, and I've said that multiple times, and there's no disrespect to him, but Zach, Phillip Rivers' best days are behind him. He didn't throw an interception. All right, he was 27-46. It's not going to get the job done. Zach, the run game, Jonathan Taylor, 21 for 78 yards, 3.7 yards per carry, and a touchdown. All right, and Naheem Hines also had 70 yards. If you can put a great quarterback behind that offensive line, like a Deshaun Watson, Carson Wentz type, this team will be dangerous. They didn't have Malik Hooker this year in the secondary, and they were getting the job done.
And they didn't have Marlon Mack there, who was their premier back on the season.
And you don't have Marlon Mack either. Zach, I know all about Marlon Mack. That was my fantasy running back. Tears Achilles in the first game. But, Zach, this Indiana team could have won a playoff game, but they just ran into someone that was red hot, and that's not their fault. All right, that is not their fault. Josh Allen's on another level right now. He really is. There's nothing anyone can do. I mean, this team next week has something to say about it, but there's nothing anyone can do at the moment or in that moment that could stop him. He's playing with confidence. He's getting the deep ball. He gets whatever he wants when he wants it. Bill Mafia was in attendance. Like, that was the first game this year where Bill Mafia was there to cheer him on. I don't know what to say. It's like, if you're the coach, there's nothing to take a shame of that. Just honestly, it's like they're a good quarterback away from being a threat. You get Deshaun Watson, you get Carson Wentz, you get somebody. Maybe you can, I don't know if you can move up in the draft. Maybe if Mac Jones is there, you get Mac Jones, but you get Atlanta. The options are there's a lot out there, but you gotta make that move. Phil Rivers is not the answer.
I'll shoot 4 names at you. I can probably put money that one of these guys will be in camp in Indianapolis next year. The favorite I'd say right now to be on that team next year is Matt Stafford.
I like that.
That's what I'm going to say. Number 2, Carson Wentz. Number 3, Dak Prescott. And number 4 will be Deshaun Watson. It's tough with Deshaun and Carson with as tough of a contract as they have, as well as Dak. I think Stafford is the favorite. He's an aged veteran who still has a lot of talent.
He has an arm.
Smart guy, and he would be a lot cheaper than the other 3. So if I'm Indianapolis, I would look into Matt Stafford this offseason.
Matt Stafford
would barely have to move it either. You're going one state south.
Matt Stafford has an arm, Zach, and check this out. He has an arm, and you're going to put him behind the offensive line that's arguably better than whatever the heck he had up there.
Best O-line.
Best O-line. You're going to give him two to three dynamic running backs, and one's on a rookie contract, and the others aren't expensive. You got Michael Pittman, T.Y. Hilton, a young tight end, and you could arguably even get Zach Ertz if you wanted it. Zach, that team is bright. If you put Matt Stafford there, they're going to win 12 games. I'll put money on that.
I think they'll be a good team next year if that's, again, those 4 quarterbacks. One of them will be the next year if they don't roll with someone in-house. All right, let's talk about the Buffalo Bills for a quick second. Not much to say on them. Defense was dominant. Josh Allen stepped up when he needed to. Run game looked great. They play Baltimore Ravens. We're going to get predictions for that next week. It's going to be a great matchup. Of course, Baltimore playing against them after a shocking game, I'd say, against Tennessee. Ryan Tannehill did not look as good as he has been all year. And Derrick Henry shut down. We'll cover that game as we go through. But, Gavin, the next game on our list, Rams-Seahawks. One of the most bizarre things I've seen in a long time, and I've actually talked about it before. A guy who can play but shouldn't play getting dressed in case of anything. Jared Goff had the headset on. He was dressed. He did go through pregame warm-ups. He was active. Otherwise, you'd have Blake Bortles activated a dirty hit that was flagged and then picked up by Jamal Adams. I don't think he intended it. I think that sometimes you just go down that way and then something happens. Unfortunately, sent to the hospital for precautionary reasons. Came back, appears to be fine. He's got a neck stinger. But Jared Goff comes in. Stats aren't pretty for him. But that run game was elite. That defense was elite. And, Gavin, let's focus on Russell Wilson and the Seahawks right now. What is the future for them?
I mean, Zach, I don't know what it's that offensive line, Zach. Russell Wilson gets hit one too many times, gets rushed in a hurry. Zach, it looked like he was running for his life again. This is the third time this year I've seen Russell Wilson run for his life. Against the Rams twice, and then Washington football team made him run for his life. You gotta get an offensive line. His wide receiving core, I like him. Their DK Metcalf is going to be a true number 1. I don't want to hear any Calvin Johnson comparisons because Calvin Johnson was getting double covers off the line of scrimmage and still catching the ball over 3 people after that. So I don't want to hear any comparisons to that. But another thing too, Zach, I don't know what you go from Russell Wilson. You prioritize your quarterback first, but you didn't get enough pieces around him. And then your quarterback looks like Superman, but then started to cool off. I don't know. I don't know what you see. I don't know what you do. You don't get rid of Russ because his contract's too expensive to move him, but you gotta get something going on. The defense is going to be the defense regardless because that's Seattle. That's their bread and butter. They built their team off defense. They're always going to have a nice defense there, especially as they get healthy. As long as Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams are there, you guys are going to be set to go. That offense, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I don't know. Run game's fine. Receivers are fine. Defense has gotten better. It's a tough situation for them. I'm curious to see how they will look this offseason again. Jamal Adams smoking a cigar after beating the Rams to win the division. We'll see how that tastes today. But the next game on our list, Buccaneers and Washington. Buccaneers and Washington. Look, this one's not a surprise. It was kept close. Tom Brady looked amazing all night. 31 points for them. But that kid on the other side, Taylor Heineke, looked like he was good. And I noticed it before the game. I saw him warming up, and his mechanics looked really clean. And he went out there and he made really good throws. I think he'll be on an NFL roster next year, and he'll be competing for a backup role. And if the right situation comes, he could see himself starting. Again, not yet, but he has a LinkedIn profile as well as the other guy on the Rams team. I think it's kind of cool. seen some of these guys out there, but on the XFL last year, barely even made a roster there. Credit to him for fighting. Washington's got a bright future for them, but just a tough break at the end of the year.
Washington's going to be the best team in this division down the road, Zach, because they're the youngest team in this division. You got to find your go-to quarterback. I like what I saw from Saturday night. Zach, he did everything right. You asked him to make a throw, he made the throw. He only threw one interception. His decision-making was flawless. He only had 2 sacks, and let me tell you, that Bucks front was getting to him, but he kept running. Zach, that touchdown, the longest run, I think, where he ran for the touchdown, dove for the pylon. You couldn't ask anything better than that. It felt
like he hit his shoulder and played the rest of the game still.
Exactly. Like, that's Superman. Good for him. Look at Taylor, man. So inspirational. But all in all, Zach, this kid's gonna be fine. It's gonna be a great backup. I don't know for what team. I think he might stay there and arguably
He'll compete.
He'll compete if they bring in Zach Wilson, who I think might be the favorite for them, or Mac Jones, whoever. They'll be fine. I think Alex Smith's time, and I hate to say it because I respect this story. I think his time is over.
I think they do need another veteran wide receiver. I think that there's a lot of guys. I mean, you could take Juju and put him there. Honestly, I think that'd be a good fit.
So
on the outside.
So what we could do with the Corvette twice a year? Got it.
Well, I mean, look, I'm an Eagles fan. Obviously, I'll never root for them to lose, but I'm glad that Washington went to the playoffs over New York. I will say that very confidently. I don't like New York fans. Washington fans don't talk because they have no right to, and no disrespect to them, but I'll take them. I'll take Washington over having to see New York or Dallas in the playoffs any day of the week. We'll get to the Eagles in a little bit because that's more issues, but let's move on to the Sunday game, starting off with the Ravens and the Titans. It's not that big of a surprise, Gavin. They've played each other 3 times. This rivalry is getting heated. Lamar refuses to shake their hands after the game. They danced on the logo. The Titans danced on the Ravens shield earlier in the year. They beat them. Derrick Henry, fatigued is the best way to put it. Tired, has played this team 3 times. They know how to stop him. Best running back in the game. Could not come up big for his team. Ryan Tannehill had good throws and then a game-stealing interception with an opportunity to drive down the field. That's why you really necessarily can't build a team all around a running back. They'll be fine, but they just caught a really tough one yesterday playing the same team for the 3rd time in a row.
Zach, let's call it how it is. It wasn't fatigue. That defensive front was there this time. Zach, the first time they met, they didn't have Calais Campbell, who was really wanted to be out there, and he made it.
Don't think they had Jonathan Ngakoue either.
They didn't have Jonathan Ngakoue the first go-round, and Matthew Judon was there, and Matthew Judon looked great. Zach, every run, 11 out of 18 of Derrick Henry's runs, he was hit behind the line of scrimmage. That means they were getting there. That means they were set for the run. Zach, you can call fatigue, you can call whatever you please, but I got to give it to the big boys up front. They said what they wanted to do. They went out there and did it, and they got the dance on the logo. Zach, that's what it was. And let's talk about Big Trust. Oh, because I can't ignore what he did. Zach, we talked about his ability to throw. Okay, you know what? He threw it interception, didn't have a touchdown pass in the air, but he made the throws when he needed to. He got the ball to his playmakers early. Marquise Brown had 7 catches for 109 yards. Mark Andrews had 41 yards. All right, he did a lot on the ground. He had 136 yards on the ground. Zach, 8.5 yards per attempt. And that 48-yard touchdown run where everybody thought that it was going to be a loss and he turned it into something. And then you had J.K. Dobbins on the ground, too. It sucks that my guy Mark Ingram ain't playing because, that was the original Big Trust, but it's okay. It's like this Ravens team looked pissed from the start, and they looked motivated, and they wanted to win. And what was the key to winning? You make Ryan Tannehill throw. That's what happened to AFC Championship game. The game got out of hand, and Ryan Tannehill had to throw, and they never came back. The game didn't get out of hand, Zach. All they needed was a touchdown to tie or to take the lead to tie at the end of the game. But they stopped. They set the tone early in the line of scrimmage. They said, look, Tannehill, you're going to have to win in the air. And it looked like he was going to. The pass to A.J. Brown, which the Eagles had A.J. Brown, but, didn't work out that way. But, Zach, the pass to A.J. Brown, and that was it. And then it was kind of quiet after that. There was nothing else from the offense of the Titans. They set the tone early. Derrick Henry looked frustrated. Big Trust. That's all that happened. And for them not shaking hands, because I know I was against how LeBron handled it. Zach, for those that don't forget, when you have a team meeting or whatever they did on the Shield and a lot of Ravens players didn't respect that, you knew how heated this rivalry was. You go 14-2 last year and you lose to them in one game. Then this year, they beat you in your house and they had a meeting on your Shield before the game even started. So then they get an interception, they dance with the logo. Did you really expect them to shake hands without there being a fight? I didn't think so. It's whatever. Don't try to make it into something big.
Yeah, fun rivalry. Tennessee is here to stay. They're building another good culture. They're another good system. They still need some key pieces. Tannehill can be the guy, but they got work to do. And I will say this, and it's unpopular, but it's something to think about. There's a slim chance out of Ole Miss that A.J. Brown is better than DK Metcalf. Slim chance, because he has never been authentically shut down the way DK has. So leave it as you will.
I don't disagree with you.
Leave it as you will. I think some people that will rile up, but I do honestly. I said yesterday, I think there's a chance A.J. Brown is a better receiver in the long term than DK Metcalf. I think Metcalf had a higher floor coming out of college, but I think A.J. Brown possibly could be right there with him.
Zach, I don't disagree with you. It's the consistency of A.J. Brown. That's what does it for me. He's been consistent since he came into the league. And he came in, what was his first year last year? He came in and showed him why. And this year he just got even better. I can see why you said that, and I don't disagree with you one bit.
Yeah, something to think. I do think at the moment DK's better, but he's right. AJ's right up there with him. The next game, of course, we already covered the Browns and Steelers, so we're not doing that. So the last game on our list, the Nickelodeon game. What a Chicago way to end the season. They had no place being there. Saints took care of business. They looked a little sloppy, but they did what they needed to. Props to the Saints. They're moving on to the next round. Gavin, reports are coming out Trubisky's not coming back next year. They're not going to fire Matt Nagy for some reason, but bygones be bygones. I'm not sure what else to say about a 8-8 team that made the playoffs just because of the Cardinals not being able to close out the season.
Zach, this team had no business being in the playoffs in the first place. Zach, I said that once, and I'll say it again. They had no business being there. Congratulations. You were one of the teams that caught fire like the Eagles did last year and snuck in, and you paid the price for it this year. I think it's good that Mr. Trubisky doesn't come back. It's clear they didn't want you there, especially this year after you go undefeated and then they take you out for a guy that throws one magical pass and all this stuff. Zach, he needs a fresh start. He needs a new place. Maybe he might get the backup role. You never know. Maybe he might go. I don't know where he's going to go. He could go to New England and be that guy there. We don't know where Mr. Trubisky is going to go, but you have to follow him. Trust and believe, Mr. Trubisky is a great guy. I had a chance to meet him, and know, Zach, I did not ruin his career on this one, as you like to utterly point out. But
you did meet him. You did meet. I did point out. I'm like, I know you got the Shriner shirt on too today. I'm like, I know Gavin had an opportunity to go down there and
this is
those draft picks from 2017.
This is the shirt they gave me too for that day. So
nice guy. Don't get me wrong. I think a fresh start is ideal for him.
But my biggest thing about this Saints game was, and it wasn't during the game, it was after the game. DeJuan, if you're still in the chat or in the comment section, Sean Payton got slime with the 11s on. Oh no!
I'm sure he's got someone to wash him off. I'm sure.
Zach, you don't. As a sneakerhead and a DeJuan, you just threw in here. That hurts to see. It really does. Oh, if Trent was here, he would agree. Oh man, my heart goes out to the 11s.
I hope to see them on his feet next game. I'm worried to see what kind of damage happens. But coming up after this, the wish that Gavin may want may still be coming. While after it appeared that Doug Peterson's job was secure, apparently things have sputtered out of control. If Doug Peterson is yet fired, we will know within the next 24 hours. Stay tuned for that.
We are now offering a new product on our Teespring. Wear a mask in public. We are now supporting a custom designed mask with our logo on it. Purchase it today, and 10% goes to a foundation of our viewer's choice. It offers a full nose and mouth coverage, single-sided print, includes 2 2-inch elastic ear loops, non-medical grade product, and finally, $1 from every mask sale is donated to a nonprofit to feed children in need. Enjoy today's episode.
All right, so last week, apparently Jeffrey Lurie, Doug Peterson had their end-of-the-year meeting to discuss going forward. My guess is this, Jeffrey Lurie, Carson Wentz is a very heavy burden on our dollar. Make it work. And Doug Peterson said, I don't know, Jalen Hurts, I kind of like him, even though he benched him and ruined his relationship real quick with him against Washington. And then he said, all right, well, I guess this isn't going to work. Let's regroup next week and see if we can make this work out. And that's what they're doing today in Florida. I'm guessing a very nice house of Jeffrey Lurie's. Yeah, they're going to meet and they're going to discuss this. And it looks like that Carson Wentz is going to stay at the moment. And that's been my gut feeling this whole time. Again, I love Jalen Hurts. I think he could be a potentially star. And thanks, Howie, for creating the quarterback controversy, arguably unnecessary, especially when all the sky was falling all year. And it was proved. Look, flash in a pan. Jalen Hurts covered up some things for a few games, but slowly the stitches came off, the Band-Aid ripped off, and started gushing blood again. I feel bad for him too because you don't want to put a rookie in that situation. As we thought it would happen against the Saints, it did end up taking a few more games to happen. So that's my take on that. Gavin, do you think that Doug Peterson does end up being terminated or walking away?
See, Zach, I must be cold-hearted. All right, because I want to see happen. I don't like people getting fired, but this is like a bad relationship, and it's public, and everybody's airing out their dirty laundry and on one another, and we know how people feel about it. So it is one of these things you have to cut ties. Doug Pearson's going to fly down to Florida, like probably luxurious house. Like I hope one day maybe Jeffrey Lurie will hand it to me. That luxurious house of his, he's going to knock on the door, and he's going to be fired on the spot. Zach, if your whole team has a problem with what happened versus Washington, because remember, Zach, they believed that they could have won that game, and I believe him too. Jalen Hurts felt like he could win that. He was down 3 points at halftime. You don't do that. And I don't care what the report says that, he was notified at halftime. Clearly, nobody was. If you look at the reactions of Jalen Hurts, and I'm not the best lip reader or anything, but I could say, if from what I interpret, it was probably, why would he do this? I was about to win this game. This doesn't make any sense. He looks shocked. Zach, he looks shocked. If you go back and look at the tape, he looks shocked. And they kept showing him. All right, shout out to the NBC guys for rubbing it in. All right. And Miles Sanders goes on WIP and says what he says. Jason Kelsey, is one of those guys who he's trying to lie. Oh, that's not what happened. Dude, don't lie. Don't lie. You're going to lie because you're on your way out. It doesn't matter what it is. Zach, the problem is this. For the past 2 to 3 years, every problem that's inside a locker room is airmail. Zach, you said it best. Why is there, every time there's a problem, the public always hears about it? It's always local. Everybody knows. Why can't things stay behind closed doors? And I feel like this is the year where Doug Peterson really lost the team. Last Sunday, or excuse me, 2 Sundays ago, because this weekend just happened, he lost the team. This past week, I feel like Jeffrey Lurie was going to stay and keep him and say, you know what, we'll go one more year. But as the week unfolded, I'm pretty sure players probably called Mr. Lurie in his house. He probably didn't like that much and said, you got to get this guy out of here. I'm at the point where I think it's Doug Peterson or the players, and I feel like Jeffrey Lurie is picking the players. Because remember, Zach, yes, a coach can have the great scheme and do this and do that, but sometimes the players have to make it work in that scheme. Josh McDaniels is a great schemer, a great play caller, but Tom Brady made it work. Look at Cam Newton. He didn't make it work this year. All right? That's where I feel Jeffrey Lurie is right now. It's like we didn't get nowhere with you calling offensive plays. My playmakers, Miles Sanders and some others, maybe Carson Wentz too, and Jalen Hurts as well.
And the fact that we can't name a lot of them is also a Howie Roseman problem. But
listen, Zach, don't get me started on Howard. Zach, I saw you said Howie. I'm gonna let that slide.
I did. My fault.
It's Howard. But Zach, what I'm trying to say is this: if your playmakers, your money makers, the guys that are selling your stadium out, or people are buying jerseys, or having a problem with your head coach, Zach, I don't care what the coach does. I don't care what the system is. Yes, sometimes the system really does outshine the players, as we know in San Francisco. But in this instance, you just went 4-10-1, or excuse me, 4-10-1, and your playmakers are not happy right now. What does that say? You gotta go to your players and be like, well, what's wrong with you guys? What's the problem? What can I do to fix this? And they're going to all sit there and most likely say, you got to get rid of this guy. We don't like working with this guy. This guy really did this wrong. And it's hard to accommodate. If they all are saying one thing, then it's easy to accommodate and be like, all right, you got to go. Zach, Eric Bieniemy has not been hired yet. The 49ers defensive coach has not been hired yet. All right, there's some great candidates out there before they get their job. Jeffrey Lurie, if you're not going to get rid of Howard, at least give me this. At least give me this, and then give me Eric Bieniemy so we can work on something. And then give me a good defensive coordinator too. That's it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of things to be reviewed. We'll continue to cover it, but now, Gavin, we're going to shift gears and talk about tonight's big game, college football playoff, Alabama and Ohio State. It's going to be a good game. I don't know how to think right now because I'll be honest with you. No one thought Ohio State was going to look as good as they did. but the SEC is an entirely different animal. I've spoken about that many a times on here. I'll let you go first, though. What are your thoughts on tonight's game?
So, is that correct me if I'm wrong? Didn't Ohio State play an SEC team last year in the playoffs?
No, they played Clemson.
They played Clemson? Or did they play somebody else?
No, they lost game losing interception in the end zone when one of the wide receivers fell down.
Okay, so then let's go to this year. They dropped a nuke on Clemson. Let's call it how it is. They dropped a nuke on Clemson. All right. Something tells me Justin Fields can do it again. It won't be a nuke, but it could be a win. Zach, I'm rolling with Ohio State tonight. Here's why. We always talk about the Big Ten being a joke. You want to shut me and you up, Zach? Go out and win this game. You want to shut the others up? Go out and win this game. You want to go out and prove that you're the guy? Go out and win this game. Zach, they had the keys to win this game. This Ohio State defense, we talk about they lose Jeff McCool, they lose Chase Young. They held their own last week versus arguably the best quarterback in all college football. And I say arguably because there's a guy on this team that says otherwise. They come out and not only do they kind of limit Trevor Lawrence, but they drop a nuke. And then, Zach, you turn around and Ohio State versus Alabama. Yes, Alabama's defense and how great they are, but they did give up a lot of points to Florida. All right, we know how garbage Notre Dame is. Zach, I'm not going to bring that game up. They shouldn't have been there in the first place. Zach, I know how you feel, and you know how I feel. But I can see Ohio State coming out here and winning this game and ultimately being competitive, really competitive, to the point that I'm not saying they're going to win by as much as they whooped Clemson by, but they could win by 3, they could win by 7, they could win by 10. That's how I feel it's going to go. If everybody stays healthy, Justin Fields said, I'm going to play regardless of how my ribs are. He says he feels confidence in throwing now. I'm rolling with Ohio State tonight.
If Notre Dame didn't make it, my pick was Texas A&M or Florida. Alabama handled them both pretty handily. Not close games, not one possession games. We're talking about 50+ points against A&M.
Florida came back though, Zach. Don't forget.
They did, but it was a much higher scoring game. Florida also lost to LSU. SEC is a different animal. It's no disrespect towards Ohio State, and with my Penn State bias, I mean that sincerely, honestly. But look,
we gotta check that just a little bit.
Justin Fields is very talented, and he should be able to do well tonight. But I can't see that defense keeping up with Devonta Smith and Najee Harris. I can't see it. Mac Jones has so little he has to do there. Nick Saban has spent the last week preparing for Ohio State. He was probably preparing for Clemson, honestly, before that game, and they got shocked. So, look, Clemson shocked Alabama a few years ago. There's no way an ACC team can beat an SEC team. I feel a similar feeling tonight. So, Gavin, I understand where you're coming from. It's going to be a shootout, though. And I trust Alabama more than Ohio State in a shootout. It's going to be a closer game. I'm not sure what the spread is right now, but it wouldn't shock me if Ohio State covers, assuming they're not the favorite, which I don't think they are. But I do have to go with Alabama tonight. I just trust their veterans. I trust their experienced players. But if Justin Fields makes a lot of noise tonight, Gavin, yes, the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to think about him against Trevor Lawrence. While I think Lawrence is still easily the first overall pick, I don't think it's going to be a slam dunk pick. But I think it's going to make them scratch their heads. I think the Jets are going to feel fine at number 2 picking him. But it's all about tonight. And I do have faith in Alabama tonight.
It's like, real quick, Mac Jones, right? Mac Jones versus Justin Fields. Mac Jones hasn't really gotten the respect I'm going to say he deserves because, yeah, he was in the Heisman category, but his receiver won it, not the quarterback. That's a little bit awkward, Zach. I mean, normally it's the other way around. Something tells you Mac Jones is not going to have a good night tonight. So I just have a feeling. This Ohio State defense, it may look underrated. And, Zach, it's funny that you said that because I saw a meme on Twitter that said Nick Saban, when preparing for Clemson and Ohio State, and he just starts ripping up everything he had for the past 2 months, 2 to 3 weeks. Something tells me I have a good feeling about Ohio State. Zach, I was the first to say Ohio State shouldn't be here due to how many wins they had. They shut me down real quickly. So now I'm on the Ohio State side, and yes, Zach, I'm gonna throw the Penn State biasness out of it, completely out of it. I'm going with Ohio State. It's just the shootout, Zach. Alabama is a team that if you go in a shootout with, they're not they barely lose. But it's also one of those things too where you rarely see them in a shootout. So would they lose? Could they win the shootout? I mean, that's the question you gotta ask yourself. What was the last shootout? Florida? And I don't really call that a shootout, Zach, because they won by what? Still two touchdowns? A touchdown or two? if there's a team that could put points up, and we just saw it, it's Ohio State. Ohio State was playing with this swag, this no sense of urgency to just throw the ball down. They just were getting whatever they wanted. They said, "Oh, we're going." It's like Madden. Zach, I'm gonna throw the B. What are you gonna do about it? Like that's what it felt like. Justin Fields was throwing to whoever he pleased, and the running game was doing whatever they wanted. Zach, I know. Alabama was like a mini junior NFL team, and there was a joke a couple years ago that they could have beat the Browns, and I'm a firm believer that they could beat the Jets this year. But I just something tells me about Ohio State today. Something tells me something good about Ohio State is going to happen.
I'll end it on this. In order for Alabama to get taken down last year, first of all, Tua had to get hurt, so Mac Jones was thrown in there unprepared. And an LSU team where every player on that offense pretty much is now making noise in the NFL. That's what it took. Ohio State's not that level. Again, it won't shock me if they win tonight or if they cover, but I am going to take Alabama.
LSU was a different breed. Okay.
They were arguably the best college team of all time. They have so many players on that team. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson. Even this year, they got a couple of guys who are still making noise from last year. But Joe Burrow, it was just an insane team altogether. Patrick Queen, who I know struggled this year in coverage, but has been a pretty good linebacker all around. But Gavin, anything else before we get on to the NBA?
Yeah, Zach, real quick. When you talk about LSU from last year, remember Joe Burrow was at Ohio State. He was the backup to Justin Fields. He actually lost a job to Justin Fields. If you lose a job to a guy like him and they had a better year than him, don't you think Justin Fields could do the same thing? That's just me.
It's quite possible. There's a lot of routes to look at tonight. It's going to be a fun one. This is going to be a very fun, in my opinion, college football playoff game unless Alabama or Ohio State finds a way to rip the roof off early. But with that being said, coming up after this, we have some issues with the NBA. They canceled a game last night because they did not have the required 8 players to play. The Sixers kind of had 8 players to play. I'm not sure the full situation on that or whose fault it really is, but rules are rules. We'll cover that after this, after the Sixers had an interesting game on Saturday, I'd say. Tyrese Maxey, 39 points. Stay tuned.
Don't mention that team, Zach. Don't do that. Don't do that now.
Would you like to know how you can support the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show? If so, head down to the comments on our YouTube channel. You will see 2 links there. The first is our Teespring, where you can see a wide variety of apparel products, including our signature product, the More Than Philly Sports Talk Show sweatshirts, offered in a variety of different colors, including gray, navy blue, and more. Finally, we have our Patreon page, where you can become a monthly donation member. 10% of all donations go towards an organization of our viewers' choice. We hope that you enjoyed today's episode, and if you can't donate, that's okay, because you can always share this.
Yeah, we broke the news the day it happened. Seth Curry tested positive for COVID. A couple other guys identified as out. No one else tested positive at the moment. It looks good for the Sixers. Ben Simmons out with an apparent knee injury, including tonight against Atlanta.
I think that's load management.
That's what my thought was at first, but now he's in Philly getting treatment, did not fly to Atlanta. And the team is expected to be without their 2 guards tonight. So I imagine it's going to be Tyrese Maxey and Shake Milton starting at the 1 and 2 tonight, which will be interesting. They'll probably go Shake, Tyrese, Danny, Tobias, Joel against a beatable Hawks team, which has been falling off since Trae Young's hot start. Are they going to win tonight? I'm going to say no, but that's irrelevant right now because we have to have a conversation about what happened on Saturday. Again, with all that being said, Gavin, people know how we feel about how the whole situation with sports. The just muscle through mentality is very controversial, but the MLB did it. The NFL has done it, and now the NBA is going to go through it, and I imagine the NHL arguably will go through it as well. The protocol's in place. If no other Sixer got the coronavirus from Seth, then the protocols appear to have worked in this situation. The Wizards are having apparent outbreaks, but there's no clear named player who had it. Thomas Bryant also tore his ACL, I believe, out for the season. Unfortunate.
I think Bradley Beal is the guy.
He's the one and they just played the Sixers, so that's going to make sense as well. I don't know. NBA's handled this well before, but again, Mike Scott, who did not play, dressed in order to have the minimum 8 players. I don't know whose call that was. I didn't really pay attention to the game because there was playoffs on. But, of course, Tyrese Maxey was great. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I imagine he'll have a good night tonight, considering he'll get more minutes. But, Gavin, what are some of your thoughts from the NBA's decision to play that game? Because you can look at it 2 ways. Rules are rules. Celtics had 7 guys last night. It wasn't enough. The Sixers technically had 8. So I'm not sure who we can really discuss this with. But I think when you don't release the second half of the schedule, you should be willing to move around some games, especially this past one.
You ready, Zach? You ready for this? Because this is going to take a lot for me to say, because you know how fond I am of this guy. Adam Silver, I'm not happy with you today. I really not. Now, you're not as bad as Rob Manfred and Roger Goodell, my good buddy Roger. All right, but Zach, Zach, he's up there today. All right, he's on my bad list today. Why? It's for this simple reason. The Philadelphia 76ers had just an injured player. Now, that game had no business being played. Doc Rivers even said I was pushing for not to play. If a team has 7 players, and I know the requirement is 8, and the 8th person is injured, and because I would guess that there's some list that you have to require to tell the NBA who's injured and who's not on your team. If you knew about that guy being injured, why let them play? All right, why let them play? And my thing is this, Zach, this is a Western Conference team. This is not an Eastern Conference team. This is a Western Conference team.
It's not even a divisional game.
Exactly. You could have found another way to reschedule this game and play again. You could have did it, Zach. They got one game in Denver, and ultimately
you could go back to back, and no fans is not going to make a big difference.
You could have went back to back, or you could have played one game there, and you could have just did another game, another date here in Philadelphia. But no, you made them play. Now we saw Tyrese Maxey, Zach. I'm not gonna get into that today, but oh my gosh, I was fine. I was happy. I'll get into that tomorrow. But the fact that you canceled the Miami Heat and Boston Celtics game last night because of 7, and they didn't dress one injured player. That's just poor. That's just poor. Whatever you want to call it, management on the NBA's part. That you can't and the fact that it happened Sunday and the Sixers played Saturday, that's what makes it worse. Zach, if you gotta be consistent with your calls, like Rob Manfred, we criticized him here and there, but he was consistent with canceling games and moving them back. Right, Zach?
They only had a few. They had the Mets had an outbreak or two. The Cardinals had an outbreak, which both the Cardinals and the Dolphins and the Marlins outbreaks were traced back to violating protocol. I'm not sure about the Mets one. It was very small. From there on out, they were fine. The only other concern is the fact that after the World Series, Justin Turner's out there with COVID. I'd never heard anything else about that, by the way. I guess no one else caught it, or I don't know. We're not getting into that too much detail. But the bottom line is every league is going to have their breakouts at first. Again, we know how this whole situation is. It's been around for about a year. We know how unfortunate a lot of it is and the devastation, destruction it's done. But at the moment, a lot of these guys are willing to take on the risk, assuming the league is holding up their own part. And it's up to this league the same way that the NFL and the MLB did on being consistent. And that's all they can really ask from the league.
You got to be consistent with your cancellations and your rescheduling. Zach, it's 72 games. I'm pretty sure you could figure a day to schedule one extra game. You're going to have to. Zach, you're going to have to start pushing and rescheduling games back, regardless if you like it or not. That's the truth.
They're probably already going to schedule this. I can see it. They do this every year. The Sixers will probably be back-to-back when they play Denver against either Utah or go down to Phoenix, because they always do back-to-backs on the West Coast for them for some reason. But I don't know. 72 games, you got to cut 10 of them. I don't recall where those games would be cut. But, second half of the season isn't even scheduled yet. So I thought that was why they did it, for the room. So I'm lost for words on that today. Again, they dressed an 8th guy. I don't know whose call that was. If the coaching staff said, okay, we want to play today, despite what Doc Rivers said, of course, we know what he said. But if they say we're going to dress an 8th guy, that's on the Sixers themselves, and therefore the NBA is consistent. I don't know the full story, but again, I don't necessarily feel that game should have been played. But again, every other league so far has pulled through successfully. No reason to believe the NBA won't as well. And they have a great track record considering the bubble. I think depending on how vaccination rollouts look in April, May, and June, we might see another bubble, at least for the first round or two of the playoffs in the NBA. It wouldn't shock me.
I think you have to do a bubble for the playoffs, Zach, because that's how important it is. And Zach, we know it takes any given team, any given day, any given series that you could lose, Zach. That's why we call them trap series. All right, we wasn't fine with Kevin Stefanski, no Joel Bitonio, no Denzel Ward, but that didn't matter to the Cleveland Browns. They handled their business. But that's just one game. And there's 50 other couple, there's like 40 plus other guys on a football field. But there's 15 on the NBA roster. And some of those key players, like not saying I want this to happen, but what LeBron James and Anthony Davis go down for the week and a half? That could be 5 games in that week. That could be 5 games. The Lakers.
And that's why I think the bubble is going to be ideal. Unless, look, if at that point, of course, look, for those who may or may not be aware, vaccination rollouts have begun with the groups, and of course, that's going to be a good sign moving forward as we try to get out of this dark moment in this history of the world. But look, if by then everybody, if all the people that need to be frontline workers and people that are more vulnerable, if at that point we're like, okay, athletes are now going to be able to, I do have props. I think it was Adam Silver who said we're not jumping the line, and I agree, you should not be jumping the line. If at that point then the vaccine rollouts are there, well then you would not. I'm not going to say you have nothing to worry about.
Is it mandatory? That's my question. That's my next question for you. Do you see leagues making it mandatory? Because doesn't that go against a right? I would guess.
I mean, it's tough. It's again, for those who need to be reminded of this, I brought it up a lot. The NBA, like all the other sports organizations, are private entities. I am not fully up to date on whether or not you can require it to participate. I am unsure. I will have to check up on that. What I see is this. Look, if you go through both vaccinations, I'm not sure if they're going to do antibody tests in the players to ensure that it was efficient. But if you decline the vaccination and you haven't had the coronavirus, I imagine that your standards will be a little stricter than others around you. Maybe you still have to wear a mask, things like that. Again, there's still so much that we as a community are learning, so we don't know yet. But right now, if the situation is as poor as this, which it's hopefully not going to be, but let's say it is, then there's no reason that you can't do a bubble. You have to do a bubble, I feel like. But if the vaccine rollouts start going, and of course cases continue to come down, and we hope with deaths coming down, and props to the frontline workers, they're doing an amazing job day and night. They don't get the respect they deserve. But I think, frankly, for these guys, it just depends. It's 4 or 5 months away. It's a lot of time. As we know, a lot of stuff has changed 4 or 5 months down the road for a while, even a week. But I think that, yes, I think that depending on the situation, there will be a bubble. I don't think they're going to make it mandatory. If they don't make it mandatory, those who choose not to take it or haven't had the coronavirus will be forced to have some stricter standards than the other players.
So people's choice. I'm just going to leave it like that. You can't force Zach. You can't force what people do with their bodies. Zach, I can't tell you to take the shot. You can't tell me to take the shot. It's all personal choice. Zach, I mean, because I'm under the age, we're both under the age of 18. It's parental decision for right now, and then when we turn the age of 18, well, we're young men, and we decide what we want to do with our bodies when it comes to something like that. But I mean, that's how I stand. It's their bodies. All right, we don't know if there's going to be a lifelong effect. Some of these guys are 18, 19, or 18, 19, and 20, young age, asking to take a shot that could ruin them long term, and then you got guys that could use the shot in order to keep going to these NBA games, like Greg Popovich and
yes, that's what matters. I think we need to. I mean, I don't want to cross the line or anything, saying anything that can be controversial. But the younger people, especially if you're in shape and you're an athlete, have handled this virus, fortunately, a lot better than some of the other people. Of course, the concern if you spread it to someone who's an older coach who is definitely worried about some of these situations, that's where it matters, and that's where it needs to start. So if coaches and staff are vaccinated, which are at the at-risk level, by the time of the postseason, I think it's safe to say they'll play in person. The problem is that, again, the big issue isn't necessarily the health effect of it, but just the rules. And again, if the older people are vaccinated, but if someone is positive for COVID, even if the people that are quote unquote at risk are vaccinated, you're not going to let them play, right? That's just stupid. Although, yes, back in the day with the flu, but again, very different situations. And so I think if you get a positive COVID test, like, oh, Seth, you can go back and play. No, you're going to be quarantining all that. That's why you still might want to do a bubble, even if the coaches are vaccinated, if the players are not. That's where it's going to be important to find out.
Zach, my worry was always for the coaches. Doc Rivers, Brett, I don't know how old Brett Brown is, but Brett Brown, Alvin Gentry, Greg Popovich,
Van Gundy.
Van Gundy.
I mean, look, anyone who's at risk, anyone who's risking their lives, going out there and doing their job. Before the players, of course, that's where it matters. But the concern for the players isn't necessarily, I mean, it can be health risks. There's some players who have underlying health conditions that could vastly affect. We know that during the season for the Phillies, we had a few guys who were out there wearing face masks. Didi was wearing a face mask. I hope we bring him back, but that's a conversation for a different day.
Did you just say something about the Phillies?
It's a sin for that, but just using it as an example. So I think for the players, the big thing is that if you contract it, you're out for a couple games if the vaccine's not going to be available. That's why you will need to do a bubble for that. But we'll see how it rolls out. With that being said, Gavin, anything else that you wanted to cover on today's show?
I mean, the Phillies are a disappointment. Zach, I figure I'll save my voice for another day. Let's just hope Doug Pearson gets fired. And ladies and gentlemen, when I say that, I'm not wishing anyone to lose their job. Zach, you know this, but there's time for things to go. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, hope everybody had a great weekend. Hope everybody has a great day. Zach, we'll be back tomorrow.
We'll do it, everybody. Thank you so much. It's been a fun show today. A lot of topics to cover. If you missed any of it, you can always rewind and go back. With that being said, again, yes, go ahead, Gavin.
Real quick, I texted DeJuan on the side and I told him about the Sean Payton's 11s, and he goes, my heart goes out to the 11s. So the 11s were.
We will need updates on that. I will need a press conference with the 11s. I will need to make sure that
I agree.
They're cleaned up and they're all good to go. But now, in all seriousness, everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. Happy Monday to all of you out there. We hope you enjoy it. And we'll see you all tomorrow.
Have a good one, everybody. I'm about to hop in the Corvette and eat lunch.
If you enjoyed today's video, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't. In addition, hit that bell icon and set it to all to get reminded of when we go live and when we post excerpts of